Ah, the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. Now that's a tale that isn't like your usual fairy story. It's more like a gentle conversation between friends, full of wisdom, kindness, and little moments that touch the heart. It's a story not just about adventure, but about life and how we navigate through it together. So sit back and let me tell you this beautiful story, as if we're all part of it. Once upon a time, in a wide open countryside, there wandered a little boy. His steps were quiet, his eyes full of wonder as he moved through fields of tall grass and under the big, endless sky. The boy was searching, though for what, he wasn't entirely sure. Maybe he was searching for a sense of belonging, or for answers to the questions swirling in his heart. He didn't know yet, but he kept walking. As he wandered, he met a mole, a tiny, round creature with bright eyes and a big heart, and, as it turned out, a deep love for cake. The mole scurried up to the boy and introduced himself. They became friends quickly, as often happens when two kind souls meet. "What is it you're looking for?" asked the mole curiously. "I'm not sure," the boy said, "but I think I'll know when I find it." The mole nodded, understanding more than he let on. The two of them strolled together, side by side, talking about life and the things that made them happy. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" the mole asked the boy, after a little while. "Kind," the boy said simply. The mole's heart warmed. "Kindness is the greatest thing to be," he said. "Better than being clever or important. Kindness makes the world better for everyone." He paused, then added with a grin, "But cake helps too." They laughed together, enjoying the simplicity of the moment. It was a conversation without rush, without the need for answers, just the comfort of being heard. They wandered for a while longer through fields and forests until they came across a fox. Now, the fox wasn't like the chatty mole or the thoughtful boy. The fox was quiet and guarded. He had been hurt before, you see, and didn't trust easily. He had gotten caught in a trap, and though the mole was small and the fox could be fierce, the mole didn't hesitate. With gentle determination, the mole freed the fox, biting through the trap and setting him loose. The fox, though grateful, didn't know how to express his thanks. He stayed silent, watching the boy and the mole from a distance. But he began to follow them, always a few steps behind, as if protecting them without ever saying a word. The boy looked back at the fox and felt a sense of peace, knowing he was there. Even though the fox didn't speak, his presence felt like a promise of safety. And so, the three of them, boy, mole, and fox, continued their journey together, a quiet understanding growing between them. After some time, they came across a horse. Now, this horse was unlike any they had ever seen, strong yet graceful, with an air of wisdom about him. The horse, seeing the small group, smiled kindly and joined them. His steps were steady and sure, and his voice, when he spoke, was deep and calming. "Sometimes," said the horse as they walked, "the bravest thing you can do is ask for help." The boy thought about this. "I always feel like I should do things on my own," he admitted. "That asking for help means I'm weak." The horse shook his head. "Not at all," he said gently. "It takes courage to admit when you need others. We are all stronger when we lean on each other." The boy listened, feeling a little lighter with the horse's words. He realized it was okay to not always have all the answers or to know exactly what to do. Sometimes just having friends beside you was enough. As they continued on their way, the conversation between the friends deepened. They spoke of big dreams and little worries. The mole, ever full of curiosity, asked, "What do you think success is?" The boy thought for a moment. "Maybe success is being happy," he said slowly, "or feeling like you're doing something important." The horse smiled. "To love and to be loved," he said, "that is success. When you feel love in your heart and you share it with others, that's when you've truly succeeded." The boy nodded. He had always thought success was about doing great things, but now he saw it differently. Maybe success was about being kind, being loved, and giving love in return. It didn't have to be grand or far-reaching. Sometimes, the quiet moments of love were the greatest success of all. They continued on, through rolling hills and beneath skies that stretched endlessly above them. The boy noticed that with every step, he felt less lost. Maybe it was the company, or maybe it was the words of wisdom shared between them, but something inside him was beginning to settle. The fox, though still quiet, began to walk a little closer to the group. He hadn't said much, but the boy felt his loyalty, like a silent bond that didn't need words. The boy realized that friendship didn't always need to be spoken. Sometimes just being there for one another was enough. As they journeyed further, the mole asked, "What do you think is the biggest waste of time?" The boy furrowed his brow, thinking about all the hours he had spent worrying about things he couldn't control. "Maybe worrying," he said softly, "or comparing myself to others." The horse nodded, agreeing. "Comparing yourself to others is a thief of joy," he said. "We each have our own journey, our own pace. What matters is how you live your own life, not how it measures up to someone else's." This comforted the boy. He had spent so much time feeling like he wasn't enough, but now he understood that he didn't have to be anyone but himself. His journey was his own, and that was more than enough. The day began to grow dim, and soon the sun was setting. The sky turned shades of pink and gold, and the world seemed to slow down. The boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse found a quiet hilltop where they could rest. They sat together, watching the last rays of sunlight stretch across the sky. "What do you think is the most important thing we can do?" the boy asked quietly, feeling the stillness of the moment. The horse looked at him with kind eyes. "Be kind," he said, "to yourself and to others." The boy felt warmth spread through his heart. He realized that throughout their journey, kindness had been their guide. The mole's bravery, the fox's loyalty, the horse's wisdom, they all came from a place of kindness. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, the four friends sat in peaceful silence. They didn't need to say anything more. They had found what they were searching for. Not a treasure or a grand destination, but the simple, profound gift of friendship and love. And so the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse remained together, each of them having learned that the journey of life isn't about where you're going, but who you walk beside. And that, my dear, is the story of the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse, a tale of kindness, love, and the beauty of shared journeys. Big Panda and Tiny Dragon, a beautiful and gentle story by James Norbury, full of quiet wisdom and simple truths. It's a tale that's not so much about a grand adventure, but more about the journey of life, friendship, and finding peace in the small moments. It's like sitting under a tree with an old friend, sharing the kind of conversation that leaves you feeling calm and understood. Once upon a time, there were two friends, a big, gentle panda and a tiny, curious dragon. They wandered through life together, traveling through the seasons, each step bringing them closer to understanding themselves and the world around them. As they walked through a forest on a warm summer's day, the tiny dragon stopped and looked up at the towering trees. "Do you think we'll ever get where we're going?" he asked, his small voice filled with uncertainty. The big panda, moving slowly and thoughtfully as always, smiled and sat down beneath a tree. "I don't know," he said, "but maybe that's okay. Sometimes the journey is more important than the destination." The tiny dragon thought about this for a moment, then fluttered down beside his friend, feeling the warmth of the sun on his scales. "I think I forget that sometimes," he admitted. "I get so focused on what's ahead that I forget to enjoy where I am." The big panda nodded, his soft eyes full of understanding. "It's easy to do," he said gently. "We all worry about where we're going and what we'll find when we get there. But sometimes the best things are right here in this moment." And so they sat there for a while in the peaceful stillness of the forest, not needing to rush. The tiny dragon felt calmer just being with his friend, and he realized that, for now, this was enough. As the days passed and the seasons changed, Big Panda and Tiny Dragon continued on their way. One day, they found themselves walking through a misty meadow in the early morning, the grass damp with dew. The tiny dragon, feeling a little lost in the fog, said, "I can't see the path anymore. What if we're going the wrong way?" The big panda, always steady, looked down at his small friend and said, "When you can't see the way ahead, just take one step at a time. You don't have to know the whole path, just the next step." The tiny dragon nodded, feeling comforted by those simple words. He took a small step, then another, and slowly, the fog didn't seem so thick anymore. With each step, the world around them became clearer, and the tiny dragon realized that even when the way is uncertain, moving forward, just a little at a time, was enough. As they wandered on, they often stopped to rest under the shade of trees, beside rivers, and on the tops of hills. They watched the seasons change around them: the bright blossoms of spring, the warm breezes of summer, the crisp leaves of autumn, and the quiet stillness of winter. During one winter afternoon, as they sat by a frozen lake, the tiny dragon looked up at the sky, which was heavy with snow clouds. "I'm worried about the future," he confessed. "What if things don't turn out the way I hope?" The big panda, who had been gazing at the snowflakes, turned to his friend and said, "It's okay to worry sometimes. But remember, the future hasn't happened yet. All we can do is live today the best we can." The tiny dragon thought about this, letting the panda's words sink in. He realized that he had been spending so much time worrying about things he couldn't control. He was missing the beauty of the present, the soft snow, the peaceful lake, and the company of his dear friend. With that thought, the tiny dragon snuggled a little closer to the big panda, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. One day, when spring was just beginning to wake from its long winter sleep, the tiny dragon asked the big panda, "Do you ever feel like you're not enough? Like you should be doing more?" The big panda smiled softly and said, "Sometimes. But then I remember that we don't always have to be doing something grand. Sometimes just being is enough." The tiny dragon looked down at his small, delicate wings and then up at his friend, who was big and strong, yet so gentle. "I guess we're both enough just as we are," he said quietly. "More than enough," the big panda agreed. And so they continued their journey, learning and growing together, each step a little reminder of the simple truths that we often forget. They learned that it's okay to be lost sometimes, that taking small steps is still progress, and that no matter where they were, they had each other. As the sun set one evening, casting golden light across the hills, the tiny dragon looked out over the world and asked, "Do you think we'll ever stop searching?" The big panda, ever wise, smiled and said, "Maybe we're not meant to stop searching, but that's okay. As long as we have each other, the journey will always be worthwhile." And so, under the fading light of the day, the big panda and the tiny dragon rested, knowing that no matter where their path led, they would always have the comfort of their friendship and the beauty of the present moment to guide them. So you see, Big Panda and Tiny Dragon is a story that teaches us about life's little moments, about being present, finding peace in uncertainty, and knowing that it's okay to take things one step at a time. It's a reminder that in this big wild world, we're enough, just as we are, and that sometimes the best journeys are the ones we take together.